Segment 5, The Birth of the Modern Corporation. Please like, subscribe and share right now. And so, we drift forward once more. The great visionaries have laid their foundations. The oil wells are pumping. The telephone wires are humming. The electric lights are glowing softly in the windows of 1,000 businesses and homes. And now, as we step quietly into the early 20th century, the world of business is about to undergo another profound and lasting transformation. The modern corporation is being born. In 1908, a determined and restlessly inventive man named Henry Ford introduced the world to the Model T automobile. It was not the first car ever built, but it was the first car built for everyone. Simple, reliable, and crucially, affordable. Ford had a vision that was almost radical in its simplicity. He believed that the people who built his cars should be able to afford to buy them. The answer came in 1913, when Ford introduced the moving assembly line at his Highland Park plant in Michigan. Instead of workers moving from car to car, the cars moved to the workers, each person performing one specific task, over and over, with extraordinary efficiency. The time it took to build a single Model T dropped from over 12 hours to just 93 minutes. It was a revolution in manufacturing. But the assembly line brought with it new questions. And so in 1914, Ford made a decision that stunned the business world. He announced that Ford Motor Company would pay its workers $5 a day. At a time when the average industrial wage was closer to $2.30, this was an extraordinary leap. Higher wages meant lower turnover, more motivated workers, and crucially, more customers who could afford to buy the very products they were helping to build. It helped lay the groundwork for the concept of the modern middle class. Breathe slowly here. Let that idea settle like a warm and gentle weight. The notion that paying workers well is not just an act of generosity, but an act of smart business. As Ford was reshaping manufacturing, another quiet revolution was taking place in the world of management. In 1911, an engineer named Frederick Winslow Taylor published a book called The Principles of Scientific Management. Taylor believed that businesses could be made dramatically more efficient by studying and optimizing every single task performed by every single worker. Management, Taylor argued, was itself a science. And that idea transformed the way corporations thought about themselves from that point forward. And as corporations grew larger, they needed new ways to raise enormous sums of money. Enter J.P. Morgan. Not just a banker, but perhaps the most powerful private financier in American history. In 1907, when a sudden financial panic threatened to bring the entire American banking system to its knees, it was J.P. Morgan who personally stepped in, who gathered the most powerful bankers in New York into his private library, and who effectively, single-handedly, stabilized the American economy. But that moment also revealed something deeply uncomfortable. And so in 1913, the United States government established the Federal Reserve System, a central bank designed to manage the nation's money supply, regulate banks, and act as a lender of last resort in times of crisis. Quietly and steadily, it became one of the most influential financial institutions in human history. Rest here for a moment. The world of business is becoming more organized now, more structured, more interconnected, and that complexity is about to be tested severely, because running beneath all of this growth and optimism, there was a fault line. The decade known as the Roaring Twenties saw stock markets soar to dizzying heights. Ordinary Americans were investing in shares for the first time in large numbers, often borrowing money to do so. It felt, to many, as though prosperity might simply go on forever. But it could not. And it did not. On the 24th of October, 1929, a day that would become known as Black Thursday, the New York Stock Exchange began to collapse. Panic selling spread like wildfire. Within days, billions of dollars of wealth had simply vanished. Banks failed. Businesses closed. Unemployment soared. The world had entered the greatest economic catastrophe it had ever known. The Great Depression had begun. Rest now. Please like, subscribe, and share right now. Facts covered in Segment 5. 1. Henry Ford introduced the Model T in 1908 as the first truly affordable automobile designed for everyday people. 2. Ford's moving assembly line introduced in 1913 reduced the time to build a Model T from over 12 hours to just 93 minutes. 3. In 1914 Ford announced a $5 daily wage for workers, nearly double the industry average, helping establish the concept of the modern middle class. 4. Frederick Winslow Taylor published the Principles of Scientific Management in 1911, establishing management as a formal science. 5. J.P. Morgan personally stabilized the American economy during the financial panic of 1907. 6. The Federal Reserve System was established in 1913 as America's central bank to manage money supply and prevent future financial crises. 7. The Roaring Twenties saw stock markets soar as ordinary Americans invested in shares for the first time in large numbers. 8. Black Thursday on October 24, 1929 triggered the collapse of the New York Stock Exchange. 9. The Great Depression that followed became the greatest economic catastrophe the world had ever known.